All right, we're running. All right, first thing I want to do is let's talk about the sky, because the sky that we're going to do in your perspectives, pretty much coloring the perspectives is the same as coloring the elevations. However, that is a class that I missed, so you were all stuck having to look at it online. And one of the things that's important about that is, how do we color the sky? I mentioned that years ago I would not even let students use markers on the sky because it just never seemed to come out well. And then I kind of came up with a technique that I liked, and that didn't do what it was supposed to do. And so I've been using that ever since, and I can show you, a lot of you made valiant efforts at it. Some came out better than others. All told, for a first time out of the chute, especially when you didn't get to watch me do it, I was impressed. So this one, I'm just going to do the sky, and we'll see if these blue markers work. I've got 3 blue markers here. Oh, that's really bad. Oh, no, there. All right, that's pretty light. That's good. I like to grab the right end. And this one should be darker still. And every time I'm grabbing the wrong end. Yep, perfect. All right, so let's see how long these last. Step 1 is I do a diamond pattern in the back. And I fill the whole thing, and it's real regular, and I do it with the lightest blue I've got. And let's start here. Okay, I just did one. Well, now I'm going to do another. And bring it right up to the edge of the sky. And another one. Let's do another one. And let's do one here. Okay, so I started with these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, kind of diamondy things. Then I fill in below them. With the same thing. But I'm moving it over half a diamond. So I'm basically filling in the dots, the spaces. And you can be kind of loose with this. And you want this with the lightest blue that you have. And when you're done, and it's important that you go right up to the line. So for example, I have half of one there and 3/4 of one there. And I have a little blob there. Okay. Now I've got this pattern, which is fine, but it just looks kind of like a chain link fence. I mean, it's weird. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my medium blue, grab the wrong end, double check to make, oh, nope, that's not my medium. Yeah, that is my medium. Oh, yeah. All right, so now what I want to do is I'm going to go over it with the medium one, but I'm not going to be as regular. All right, so, and I can start maybe on the bottom of the clouds and kind of just do this. And maybe put another one here. And maybe put another one here. And maybe put one here. It's just, I'm not following any specific pattern. I'm just trying to, again, and get a couple right up to the edge. All right, and do that. Then I'm going to grab my light one. These days I'm going to use that brush end. All right, and what I'm going to do is once it's dried, I'm going to kind of go back over it and just add a little to the top of that dark one. And don't hesitate to throw a little in there. Be a little irregular with it. There, oh yeah, oh, there we go. All right, now I grab my dark blue and I want to put in, I want to put in little lines with this one, and I kind of do. And I don't go too crazy with these, but I throw a few of these in here, and there's not a whole lot of rhyme nor reason as to where they go, other than I like to have a couple on the edge. I like to shoot one maybe through a tree or a building element, and I just put a couple dots in. All right, then once I have those, I'm going to grab my medium blue, and I'm going to kind of go over the top of some of those, just to kind of smudge them a little. Maybe throw a little in there, and you know, that's pretty good right there. It's, and if you look at that, if you look real hard, you can kind of see where the original diamonds were, but they don't tend to leap out at you. It wants to be kind of irregular. Past the first, once you put the diamonds down, which are real regular, everything else wants to be irregular and kind of splattered all over the place. And the more irregular you make it, the more sky-like it looks. Has that been of any help at all? All right, well, rather than start from the beginning, typically what I would do when I did my elevation is I would do all the green first, and then I would move on to the sky and do the first layer of sky, and then I would come back. So rather than do this whole thing twice, I'm just going to dive right in and go right to the green. And hopefully this is pretty washed out. Good. All right, I fill all the ground, all the trees with my first layer of a washed out green. And, you know, on your elevations, of course, this is just going to be the trees because you don't see a lot of ground. But in the perspective, you get to do all the grass. I think that's a pond right there, so I want to be careful with that and try not to make it green because you wouldn't want to swim in it. And it's kind of like doing your site plan in that you've got a ton of green to do. And we'll be putting many layers of green over all these trees and a little bit over the ground. If you think about it, try not to fill in the pond. All right, I got my first layer of green down. I'm going to let that dry for a minute, and then I'm going to hit the trees with a second layer of my lightest green. But for now, I'm going to want to get started on the roof while that green dries. Again, I'm just doing big areas. I'm going to start with a light gray. That'll work. You're kind of doing the same thing. I'm just going to lay down one wash of light gray over the whole roof. And we'll let that, oh, there's a little pocket of roof right there. We'll let that dry for now. I'm going to go back while that's drying. I'm going to use my light green. Is that my light green? It doesn't look like my light. Yeah, that's my light green. Yeah. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do just the trees with the light green. And I'm just going to put a second coat on the trees. It's not going to amount to much, but it's going to make them a little more vivid. Again, I mean, it's not a huge difference, but it's something. It's a pretty small drawing, so it doesn't take forever to do this. Oh, I forgot these trees and this grass. So we'll put one coat on that. Come back and hit it with a second. Got all these. Yeah, we'll just keep throwing that on there. I'm going to have to go ahead and hopefully that's dry enough that a second coat will make a difference. Close enough. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a second layer of green right near the edge of the house on the grass and try and kind of flare it out a little bit. If you and the corners, just put a little bit of, we did some of this on the site plan, and you did it on the walls or your elevations, and it's just to kind of accent the building and bring it out a little bit. So in particular, you know, the front of the building, it's pretty subtle, and I might actually darken that up in a minute. While I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to go ahead and lay down some beige or kind of a light sandy color, which I hope this is. That'll do. I'm going to put this on my house. You can do whatever color you want. I recommend that it be pretty neutral. So I'm just going to go ahead and...
What colors do you like for houses? Beige?
I will usually use a beige or a light gray, and then if I want to change it, like for example, if it was a blue house, I probably wouldn't do the whole thing in blue, but what I would do is I'd put gray, and then I might add a little blue to some corners and try and feather it in. We'll see what we can do with this one. Maybe I can add a little color to this. But I tend to be really subtle on the colors of the building. You know, if it's a red house, go with like almost a salmon pink, and you can again add some red highlights in there, but I wouldn't make it all red. It's just going to be too strong. So I tend to use washed out colors on the house. Like that. I mean, it's pretty tame. I'm going to lay a second coat of my gray on the roof, but I'm only going to do it part way up and do the corners, much like when we did, that looks dark. It'll be handy. Yep. All right, so I'm going to start at the bottom, And I'm just gonna put just a little bit. I'm gonna come up about halfway and then really hitting the bottom edge of that. We'll be going back with the darker gray in a minute. But you can kind of see I'm trying to, much like we did in the elevation and with the lines, I want to get the edges of the roof darker and then highlight the corners. Now we're going to mess with the trees. I'm going to go ahead and take a medium green. I don't know how medium, I think that's more medium than this one. These trees are going to be, oh yeah. All right, wish me luck. All right, same thing you did with the elevation, where we want to do like the bottom half at an angle. So and I don't really necessarily have a problem with these trees being pretty bold, and these will be.
Well, that's good to hear because those are the colors basically that I have. So
What's that?
those are the colors that I have. I have 3 greens.
It's okay. Because by the time we're done, what I'm going to do is I'm laying this down, and then I'm going to go back at it with my. See, and I use some different style trees in here, not a lot, but some. Some are triangular and pointy, others are round and puffy. So again, I'm doing, the bottom third of the tree. Make it, kind of stipple it and dot it and make it a little woogly. That's a big old tree, so we'll give it a lot of green. Did I miss any trees? No. All right, we're going to let that dry for a minute. I am going to put a touch of gray on the pavement. When I do my pavement, I just use my lightest gray. And I just put a little bit in the corners. Much like I did with my, and I'll go ahead and do the same thing to the sidewalk. But I don't want to fill it in. I'm just doing the concrete there on the base. And that's enough. Stop right there. You don't have to do any more on it. I'm going to put my light blue as the first layer on the water. And I'm going to put a layer of blue in the windows. The light blue. Fill them right in.
That's my favorite part.
Doing the windows?
Yeah, putting the blue on the windows is just like.
It makes a difference. I love putting the dark blue in the windows.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of pops them out. And it's not much, but that's one of my favorite parts too, actually. All right, so I got to do something with that chimney, and then we're going to mess with that green a little bit in a minute. The chimney, I'm going to have to break into some of the old standards.
I forget my chimney every time, so I can't wait to see.
It's a white chimney then.
What's that?
It's a white chimney then. Yeah, that's going to be a chimney. All right, let's see if I can find something that's a little more to do. And I'll use that to help it. Oh, what's this?
Just say they whitewashed the brick for a more contemporary style.
Exactly, yes.
The red
And then
is
you can
like.
blame it as being intentional and nobody will know the wiser.
I don't know if that's any more subtle, but it's a little more subtle.
The dark red skin. I feel like I'm just gonna mess up the whole thing.
I might have. It's, but it'll be fine. All right, now we're gonna go back and whale on these trees a little bit. I'm gonna grab my light green, and I wanna try and get a third level between this green and that green. And this light green is pretty light, so I don't know how much this is gonna help. But I'm just kinda grabbing the edge of it and hoping that it's gonna kinda soften that transition. It's not a whole lot, but it'll help. I'm mainly looking to get the edge of it where the two greens change, because by the time I'm done and I get that nasty green, that really dark green in there, you're not going to notice a lot of what I'm doing now.
Have you ever tried to use the paintbrush end?
Use paintbrushes?
Like use the other end of the marker?
I don't usually have them, but we can try it. It's okay. These are pretty small drawings, so, it's kind of nice for stippling. I feel like I'm painting. I want to wear a beret. Let's do that. Yeah, works. I mean, it does the same thing. So now I'm going to go and I want to put a little darker gray on the roof. You'll notice what I'm doing is I'm doing like one flat wash, and then I let it sit for a minute while I work on another flat wash, and I build it up over time. And the first time you do the flat washes, it's you're doing a bigger area, so it takes longer. So as you're coloring, the amount of coloring you're doing gets to be less and less and less and less and less. So you're getting closer and closer to being done, which is always good fun. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna put a little bit less of the gray on this. Mainly just focusing on the bottom and maybe a little bit on some of the corners. Let that dry in for a second. I'm going to go ahead and do another wash on this building to try and do, I want to give this, as opposed to just being a flat color of the side of the house, I'm going to put a second layer on the bottom and feather it up towards the top. And this is a real important part that people often forget. And it makes a huge difference in how the drawing reads. You can put a little hint of it in some of the corners, but you're just trying to give this wall just a little more character so it doesn't look and a lot of you guys got this when you did the elevations. I was surprised because it's real easy to overlook when you're just doing it from the video, but it's a subtle thing, but it makes a big difference. All right, now I got to go back on those trees, and now I'm going to use the nasty green, all right, which should scare everyone, myself included. But let's see what we can do and hope for the best. All right, I really want to focus on the bottom of the tree and the right side. I'm not going all the way up. I'm going to put a little bit there. I'm just trying to get the bottom of the tree. Maybe just a touch on the right-hand side, but you can start to see they're lifting off already now. And it makes a difference to put this in there, as scary as it is. And I'm using a lot of stippling when I do this, where I'm just tapping dots of color on there. I think I got them all. All right, well, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my medium green and start to try and bring that out between the two greens. So let's go ahead and really focus on the spot between the dark green and the medium. And if you put a little more medium green in the trees, I'm all right with that. Just trying to get that third layer. On the big trees, it's going to be even more noticeable. And I wouldn't hesitate to put a little more in the big trees, because it's blending in a lot. That light green is it's just blending in with the grass. So the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and remember when I talked about using you can kind of see on the building where I use the 2 layers and it looks a little darker and more vivid at the bottom. I'm going to do something really bold. That's not it. And I'm going to try, wish me luck, and just put a couple little dots of that green there. And then try and just scrub it out a little bit and make the grass just a little greener at the edge of the building. And I'm scrubbing it with the lighter green. And you can already see, other than coloring the foundation, which I would fix in GIMP, by the way.
Is that something you could use a blender pen with?
Use a what?
Blender? Is that how you use a blender?
I just haven't had that much luck with the blender pens. Yeah, I suppose you could. I just find the light green is going to do it as much as you really need it to. You know, this works. And it just gives that green, and sometimes if there's a little left over, you can hit the corner, scrub it right in there, and just give it a little more so it's not quite as flat as it was before. Windows and lake.
You're gonna touch in the garage. I don't like just leave it.
I'm just using white doors on the garage. I'm gonna do, what I am gonna do is put a little, I wanna put some of this beige in the roof to warm it up a little bit and make it a little darker. I might even put, so I'm gonna put just a little in here. Now I want to do some more blue. I forgot to do this window. Ooh, that's where that brush comes in handy. Doop. All right, let's get our dark blue. and try and do, I'm not gonna use the brush because that's cheating. I'm just gonna put just a dab of it up in the top of the windows. And again, it's pretty small, just a couple dots. And you'll see that I mean, it brings the windows out quite a bit. So I like that. Next, I'm gonna do some similar stuff, although I'm not gonna start right with my crazy blue. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do the famous scrubbing. So let's just try and put a little bit of this right by the edge of the lake. And then try and hit it quickly with the original blue. And see if we can get like a third watery tone out of it. I like that, that's fine. Again, it's kind of watercolory and that's what we want for water. Last bit of color I would do, other than putting a little tiny smidgen of blue up there, is I would even hit the roof with a little more gray. But I would really focus on the front edge of it. And maybe just a dot there and a dot there. Darken that up. I would do the yellow flash in the trees, and then it's time for line work. And you'll see with the line work that it's going to, excuse me, I'm gonna walk right through the leaf line. Oh dear. I got very scared. I thought I lost my flashers. But I still have them.
Have you ever done it with yellow marker?
I don't think a yellow marker would pull it off. You could try it. Because this is laying on top of these, I don't think the yellow marker is really gonna stand out much on the green. I could be wrong. But, you know, this covers the green and it does make a big difference in the trees, just because there's so much green on this that it makes the trees stand out a little bit more as trees. And I'm gonna start drawing in a second, but I'm not gonna draw the whole thing, even though I want to. But it's gonna make a huge difference putting in the black lines, which you should all understand by now because you've been through it so much with the other drawings. There's just something about going over that line work that makes it pop more. So let's focus on maybe kind of this area as opposed to, I'm just gonna keep walking by you all night.
This Maggie's face is really
It's just a little tiny drawing. I'm gonna use a little tiny triangle.
It's good, it's just gonna be
Hey, seems like it's working. All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and do some of my curved lines because they're always a nightmare. Watch it with a curved line of trim. I would almost just dot that in because it is tough.
I did notice on the assignment that was due today that my hand got really tired.
Yeah.
way more tired from having to hold down the triangle wicked hard. These are these are tough.
They'll get stronger over the years. I'm going to start putting in some angled lines. And let's just go ahead and again, you can already see that when you do this, it just tightens up the drawing a lot. And you're going to have to go real careful with these because these lines are very thin.
You're talking about the texture lines. I really think.
All of them,
Yeah.
yeah. Just the texture, it's.
I have a third weight pen that I use. So I got the fat Sharpie. I got that one, and then I got an even skinnier one.
You found a skinnier Sharpie?
It's not a Sharpie, but yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of well, yeah, it's a technical pen.
I
Probably,
don't know. It's like,
yeah.
I don't know.
It's just a very fine
teeny,
point.
teeny tiny.
Y-
Yes.
You might find that handy with here.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go easy on this one, you should be okay. But it's you get some nice hit-go-hit with this because it's such a tiny line that you get a lot of blobs on it, which is good. But can you start to see how that's tightening up? Just look at the part that I've done versus, say, the garage. And just putting in those lines in black ink, it's just going to make it stand out more. Wait till I get the trees in there. Get these windows done. All right, but see, compare this with this. You can see how much is starting to come out. I'm going to do a couple of the trees and some of the freehand work. Let's do some of these, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's favorite grass. Let's do some of these trees. I'm gonna stop and let you. I'm, again, more than willing to go till 9:30 at night just tracing this, but
And the sky is done.
sky's done. I don't need to do anything more to the sky. My color's done. I mean, so again, oh, let's do these. Bring those that level. Bringing in the line work starts to lift the stuff off the page. Putting in the borders for real will all of a sudden tighten up that sky. See how much crisper it looks up top when I put that in? It's just a matter of putting the different line in. Famous background stripe. When I darken that in, it's going to also suck your eye into it a little more.
And you hang that on the, like, outside of the trees even. Yeah.
Like there?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the same technique in that, much like with the elevation, you're trying to set this up a little bit, but then I usually bring the front in a little so I don't have quite as much foreground. But I'm just trying to use that background line to suck your eye into the drawing. And it makes the trees stand out a little more. And it starts to bring in. Does anybody want to watch me trace anymore, or are we good? Okay, so, I would trace over all the line work, and, some of the texture I might actually leave alone, because it's pretty fine and you can see it enough, but I would get the building and the trim, because I think that needs to be there, assuming your marker wants to write. I told you I'd want to trace the whole thing, and I didn't lie. I also probably wouldn't use my fat Sharpie for profile lines. I would just go over it again with this and just pop that up a little bit. because I think the fat Sharpie at this scale is going to be a little bit too thick. You know, 2 passes with this is going to make a nice profile line.
Is that how you do shadows too?
Yep.
Yeah.
I would just do them, because I just think that this is, and the shadows actually aren't reading too bad. Yeah. Questions? Thoughts? Wow. Why don't you all, here, I'll
Just
stop
copy
it.
that and repost it in a couple days.
Yeah.